Hey Bob, welcome back from Italy.
Thanks, Hannah. It's really great to see you.
It's amazing to see you. We got to have like a little lunch right before you went to Italy,
All
and
right.
now you seem to be sitting in Hawaii, but I know that's a lie. Where are you
No.
really?
I live now in Chino Hills, California,
Oh,
after spending all of my life in Boston and on the North Shore. I fulfilled dream by moving west. Go west, young man. A little late, but
I
we're
mean,
really loving it here. And you know, we missed a terrible winter, which I felt bad for everybody back there. But it's more, it's just. Whatever's going on in your life, to walk outside and be in the sunshine, like day after day after day, mitigates a lot of it in terms of impact on you. You just look at yourself and say, I see mountains every day, sometimes snow-capped, and it's just, warm and balmy. And, there's like, we have apps on our phone now that tell us, when the fires in our area and stuff like that, and what to watch out for. And there's been three or four already the last couple of weeks. And it's not like I think the big fires last year or a couple of years ago caught them. It's just like we have 100-year snowstorm, that kind of thing. I think it was just like a confluence of events that just made it, happen like that. But
mhm.
they're so aware of it and so good at it in terms of attacking it before it gets out of control that, and our across the street neighbor is a fireman in town. So he, I just told him that if I see you scurrying to get your dog in your car, I'm, I'm going to know it's time to go. So yeah, very happy here. Very happy here.
That brings me so much joy to know. And you should be warned that I will be visiting you at some point in the next year or two.
Sure. That'd be great.
I will probably not do it around the holidays because I know you like host a lot of children and dogs for the holidays. Now, you haven't gotten a chance, I'm assuming, to talk to all of your children, dogs, and your beautiful wife, Leslie, who, and when I say beautiful, it just sounds like a thing to say, but you and I both know Leslie is a force of nature. And like at some point, it would be fun to do a conversation with her, and she is working. You are in semi-retirement, and like, let's make a quick note. The last time I posted about you on the blog, it was like adjacent to your kidney transplant.
Hmm. Yeah, I went back to Mass General and got sort of get my yearbook signed, the last check-in with Mass General on my kidney, and then now I'm in the hands of Cedars-Sinai out here, which is, it's a sort of lateral step, so it's good healthcare on both coasts. So I'm very lucky.
This is one of the profound gifts of these United States of America, that we have been a birthplace of innovation in terms of political technologies, but most importantly, in terms of health technologies
Yeah,
when it comes to things like kidney transplants.
yeah.
Do you remember the story of Steve Jobs?
Tell me.
Not everyone knows that when he was dying of cancer, he made like a big donation to a college in the South. Someone can Google this later if they choose to. Um, he made a big donation and he got a kidney. I think it was kidney cancer that he was dying of. I can't remember for sure. Um, he ended up dying anyway, but he left huge amounts of money to that specific medical space.
Mhm.
And there was a I got to have a good conversation in my ethics course for my master social work program at Salem State with the inimitable Dr. Jonathan Lukens about what are the ethics of a situation like that. Like now that specific space gets to make more like transplants and stuff, but like somebody maybe who was like on death, who was in prison, or like somebody who had less money and access to information, like
Mhm.
that could have survived with that kidney. What are
Yeah,
the ethics of, and like it was an interesting conversation. You and I both know that your kidney kind of came to you in a miraculous perfect way, and that you didn't have to do anything unethical to get that kidney, which is kind of cool. And now you're living in a warmer, brighter space.
Yeah, and the it's interesting. I was just listening to a podcast, and it's someone talking about sort of uncomfortable moral things in our society that people and one of the things that came up was the transplant program. And the way that it's managed now, there's a national sort of registry, but there's also it's handled state by state. So in Massachusetts, ordinarily, depending on your blood type, it's about a 5 year wait. I was lucky enough to get one in 3.5 years. But the sort of posed question was, we don't allow people to sell their kidneys. It's illegal to sell your kidney, right? And one of the concerns is that it'll end up being poor people selling their kidneys to rich people, and that's what the resistance is, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the way that it's handled right now and managed by the states is there's a certain number of transplants that take place every year, but only about 30% of the people who need them get them. And it's, they developed a new program in the last several years where it doesn't have to be a direct donation. So if someone wants to give me a kidney, but it's not a fit, they can give a kidney to the system where someone is a fit. I get a kidney from someone else that is a fit for me, and that's a great step forward. But
I
it's
love
it's
that.
it's a big issue, It
Yeah.
can, I mean, people go, and sell blood and plasma and stuff like that. They get paid for that, but there is real danger because in America, every good idea gets monetized, falls under the capitalism arc, and
hmm
it
And
creates great issues. So,
it does. I mean, I'll personalize your story a little bit more
sure.
because you and I both are empathic, big feelers. I believe that big feelers are often big healers. And as someone myself who has been diagnosed with a mood disorder, but who doesn't really necessarily identify with that, like, I think if you wanted to give me a label, I've always been ADHD, but like, I know how to manage that. And like, I can track, like, yes, have I gone through deep, deep darkness? Yes. I almost died when I was 9. But also, I'm someone who is highly idealistic and optimistic and very spiritual in ways that not everyone knows what to do with at times. And the story of my diagnosis is neither here nor there for today, but one of the reasons that I was most frustrated by being forced to take psychotropic medication, but even something that is a simple mineral like lithium. I'm sorry, it's not a mineral, it is a pure element. But, it has to be mineralized or it has to be put in a pill. Um, I didn't like it. I didn't like being on any of that stuff. I want not because it makes me more stable and everyone else can handle me. No, no, not because I've never been suicidal. I've never been harmful to anybody else. It was forced on me by a system. And lithium, if you take it at a therapeutic dose for a long enough time, it destroys your kidneys. Right around the time of my diagnosis, one of the people I admire in the world of singing, Kate Stevens, wonderful singer in Sora Lanza, the group I was in, she was, I think, in around the age of 50 something, maybe 60, donating a kidney. And, she and I both ride our bicycles everywhere. I looked at her and I was so jealous, just plain jealous and angry. Angry at this system that was forcing me to pollute my own body, angry that a woman older than, not angry, motivated. When I saw that, I was like, I will do what I have to do to get out of this bind that I'm in right now with whatever it is that has happened to me. I do not condone the labeling of my body or the forcing of my body to do things it doesn't want to do. That doesn't mean I don't think medication is helpful sometimes. And it took me taking a low dose of a different medication to get back to a stable enough place that I could finally get off of medication. But I don't have a judgment of people using medication per se. What I have a judgment of is a system that is disenfranchising some, harming the bodies of many based on norms that are coming out of the Civil War. That's where the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Behavioral Health comes out of. And it started with mental, not behavioral health. This whole idea of behavioral health care, I cannot condone and never will. I never will because I see it as evil. And that makes me sound very religious, but like there have been so many people who have been preachers, rappers, people who maybe sold a little bit of pot, people who had big feelings. So many people have been locked up, literally in prisons and or in institutions called hospitals. And we have been, as a society, condoning labeling, doing whatever we want. This is big pharma. These are special interest groups. We have better ways that do include some of those pharmaceuticals. It's so complex. And a lot of people don't know any of the history, which is why I think it's really important also, Bob. Like, we're coming up on Memorial Day. I'm going to post this on Memorial Day. And you and I could fondly reminisce for bazillions of years, it feels like, about how we know each other because I taught your kids and I fell in love with your whole family. But what I want to hear about right now is your trip to Italy and the land of your ancestors. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I never met my father's father because he died at 40 and my father was 10. So my father grew up a lot without a father, and he's always been kind of a mystery. My father was that whole generation was pretty close-lipped about, their past, and that, my parents both came from humble beginnings, and they just didn't really like to talk about the past, So he would let out things once in a while. We have this hereditary kidney disease, polycystic kidneys, that sort of just gets handed down. My kid's amazing. My biological kid's amazingly didn't get it, but um, and he said he died of that. But he also told me in a moment of he sort of let his guard down. He said that in 1927, his father he had come to the United States from Italy. And at that point, he owned a restaurant and built a construction company and a concrete company. And he was making $1,000 a week in 1927, which is and he couldn't speak English and a huge amount of money, but he's gambling 900 of it away uh, every week. So my brother and I always talk about when we get, when the dark instincts in us come out, we always blame it on him, that he was the guy
Oh,
who gave it
wow.
to us. But I've always, since I had so little information on him, and to be honest, part of the research I started to do into him had to do with trying to see if I could get an Italian passport, right? Given the current state of things, I thought it would be, prudent to have another option, and uh, and so I went there and um, had been to Italy once before, but only Milan. My daughter Maya, who's at the University of Maryland, was studying abroad for a year and was in Rome. So we went to Rome and it was lovely. We went to Florence, went to Naples. Just a great experience. I love being in the city. When we walked down the sort of alleyway, it's really a street, but narrow street where the rental apartment was, the landlord like threw open a window onto the street like in a movie and yelled out, "Hey, Roberto!" And so it was really kind of fun. So my grandfather grew up in a town called Montemerano, which is about an hour northeast of Naples, and it's really hard to get to. It's a mountain town. It's a very small place. It's been around for a long, long time. Avellino is nearby. You get a bus from there, but if we took a train, but then the bus sometimes doesn't come back, so it's really kind of an old world situation. So my daughter Maya and I Leslie didn't come for a couple of days, so we took that opportunity to go. We took a train to Naples, and then we figured the only way we're going to be able to do this is to take a taxi. So there's this whole queue of taxis out in front of the train station. And it was like, it really was like in a movie. We went to this group of men and said, we'd like to get a ride to Monte Morano. We showed them where it was on the map. And they all surrounded us and they were like all talking at the same time and talking about how much it should be and talking about who should do it and all this stuff. It was like this clatch of guys, just like they were just managing the whole thing. And when we walked up, I saw this young guy yelling at a, a customer that probably had refused to go with him. And he's going like this and he's yelling at them in Italian. I said, I hope I don't get that guy. And that's who we got. That's who they called over to get us. So his name was Raphael, and he was a, young, angry, and we kept on he'd tell us a number, we'd say no too much, we'd walk away, and we did that 3 or 4 times. We finally get a number we could stomach. And the thing was, he had to drive us there, which is an hour and 10 minutes or so, and then he had to sit there for 2.5 or 3 hours while we explored the town,
Mhm.
and then drive us back. So it was going to cost some money, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, but so we got the ride. It was a little hair raising, but we went to City Hall, and I walked in, and it actually Maya has only been there for a semester, but was already had enough Italian to tell them what we were there for, and
Mhm.
he brought us into the office, and he brought out these big books, and he was on two computers, and he found my grandfather. Now, the truth is, it wasn't new information. I had pretty much everything he gave me, but it was a ceremony for him, and so he printed it out, where he was born, his parents, his grandparents, and all that other stuff, stamped it, signed it, and then I was holding it, I had him stand up and take a picture with me, and so Maya took a picture of us and stuff. He was Luigi. So, um, and then we explored the town. We just walked around and some people just, it was a really, I mean, it really hasn't progressed in, 100 years. So, really, really old town, not very many people, certainly not many people out and about. And the ones that we did see, we'd say buongiorno, and some of it, someone would say it back, others would just walk past, or they'd just stare at us as we walked by. So it was an interesting experience. But it felt good. My whole goal for years was just put my feet on the ground where he was, and that's what I did. So it was
Say his
awesome.
name again.
Oh, Antonio
And
Granese. Yeah, yeah.
now, in Italiano, Granese.
Right. It's
Is
interesting
that true?
because the Italian everybody said that Granese is pronounced Granese, but they when I the people in uh Montemarano pronounce it Granese, Granese. So
Granese.
yeah.
Granese.
So
So I can occasionally call you Roberto Granesi.
right,
Granesi.
right.
Granesi. Really emphasis on the last syllable of,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I can also call you Bob.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I can I can also call you one of my favorite Huck Finns of all time when you sang River in the Rain. I mean, the book that I'm about to read is a Pulitzer Prize winner for a book club that I've recently joined, and it's entitled James, and it retells the story from Jim,
Right.
Jim's point of view.
I've
Now,
heard of
I'm
it. Yeah.
totally forgetting the author right now, but it's like
Yeah.
on my table out there. I'll put it in the notes for this episode. I'm excited about this because as you know, I've I've been deep in the waters of the musical Big River. When I was in eighth grade, I got to play one of the important roles in that show, small but important role. It was a very impactful experience for me to be in that show. Not a show that we perform much. People don't want to see people who look like me and you saying the N word. I don't think it happens very often in the show. Part of me is longing for a time in maybe 5 years or so where watching something like that is a form of truth and reconciliation because Mark Twain was speaking truth to power. by telling the truth. And now we get to see reimaginings of that iconic story that are just as important, right? Tell me what it was about River in the Rain that got you also fired up about that song.
Um, I think I'd heard the song, but it wasn't something that, I listened to often over the years. Um, I think it was the experience of, to give some background here, uh, Hannah taught both my youngest girls at Stonebridge Montessori School. And she's a music teacher, and just bubbling effervescence when she walked into the room. And years later, Hannah sent out a broadcast email to people she knew saying offering a free voice lesson. And I just used that as an excuse to do something that I hadn't done since I was really young, which is to start to sing again. And I went to see Hannah, and it started, you know, taking voice lessons every week. And about 6 weeks in, or 6 months in, she said that she and her husband at the time were going to be auditioning for a show in Newburyport, Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And she said, and you should audition. And I said, I don't think so. And she said, yes, you should do it. So I went to the audition, and everybody, most of the people in the show have been acting since they're little kids and had huge bios and stuff. I had a piece of paper, that had my picture, and all it said was raised on musicals. That's what I wrote. And the director loved that and said, I was raised on musicals too. And so I got up and I sang River in the Rain, and I sang, I think, On the Street Where You Live. And then he said, now sing it with a French accent. And so I tried and I stopped. I said, no, that's Russian. And then I tried it again and I said, that's Yiddish. So, um, but he was testing me for something that
Uh-huh.
in the show, the older brother, Ruben, sings a solo where he's got to do it with a French accent, which I managed to a little bit of an extent as the show went on. But there I was at 63, the first time on stage in 40 years, singing a solo in a show, and it was just the most amazing experience. And I credit Hannah for getting me there. And it was just like, and to answer your question, I think the thing that really, uh, when I sang that song, I remember singing it just for you, and then when we did a little bit of a show at a retirement home, and I could see the pictures of the story going by me when I was singing it, which was like I was just completely lost in it. And it's so hard, it's so strange to say, but there's something about I could see the waters coming up and coming into their space and stuff. And I could feel the trauma of it, but also it just comforted me. I in the strangest way, and I have never been able to explain to myself what that meant. I just felt really connected to it and to the people and in, telling the story and stuff. So, that's how I got started. So,
I love that. I mean, what's beautiful about putting music into something is when we have music, and it doesn't have to be with the voice, though I think the voice is so embodied that it tends to like unlock things somatically, psychologically, emotionally. I think it's vibrationally also a way of like connecting with the ancestors and the next, those who come after us. I have been looking frequently at a photograph that was in a box in my parents' basement that I was like, I want that. And I finally framed it. It has just a little rip in it because of my move this winter, but it's very small and I don't mind that. But you're going to see a glare because I don't have the fanciest of
yeah.
glasses. But this is Anna Allstrand, my great great aunt. I believe there's two greats in there. And she served in World War One. as a
Wow.
nurse. Yeah. And when I look at her resolute, sensible, and penetrating visage, I'm gonna put something on this wall and like cross it at some point that says like live like your ancestors dreamed you into existence. Because I get to dance for a living now soon, in terms of like Zumba, Aqua Zumba, teaching some Polynesian, teaching yoga, continuing to work on my musical. And I get very emotional looking into her eyes and wondering about the children she could have had but didn't because she served and she chose a different kind of lifestyle. Thinking about all the ways my life looks shinier than hers, maybe. Wondering what she would have taught her own children and grandchildren. And it makes me excited and hopeful because I do believe that all of our ancestors dream about a future that looks better than what's happening in reality. And I feel like I'm telling people all the time now, Crazy Horse, a Native American, an indigenous man to these lands, he spoke clearly and prophetically that this generation, the ones coming up under us, you and me, Bob, Roberto, they are ushering in a millennia of peace. We're coming into 1,000 years of peace, Bob. Like, whatever dastardly energies have seen these systems that are harming each other and ourselves, let them die with our generations. Like, let the horror that I experienced being held in the arms of widows and orphans in Romania and Hungary in 1990. Let the horrors that your beautiful gambling ancestors witnessed that maybe made them more likely to gamble away. Like, what we can't do is write people free passes for doing harmful things. What we can do is say, if there are things my ancestors did that harmed, let me be one of the voices saying, listen to other voices right now. Those voices matter too, right? And let me also be somebody who's done my own homework enough to speak out the truth of history and offer the gifts that I have to offer. And I will forever be re examining what my role is in history because I'm a writer and a truth teller and an artist. You too are those things. And I'm glad I got to be adjacent to you singing on stage. And you did get much better at that French accent over the course of the run. I was a tiny role in that show, but I got to put on a black wig and dance like a Cleopatra type character, and that was really fun. And one of my proudest moments was pushing the fake goat on stage. There was a beautiful kid who I taught voice lessons to as well briefly. She didn't really need voice lessons. She was just phenomenal. Who called me goat pusher. She and I gave each other fist bumps every time I did it because I did it at the perfect moment, at the perfect time, because there are no small roles. There are only small actors. And those of us playing small roles learn how to do 12 other things. That's what it is to be a theater person. And that's
Mhm.
also what it is to be human on the stage of life, in my not so humble opinion at this point. Humble as in grounded on the earth. Tell me what it means to you to be human, because you're a little older than me.
A little bit. Yeah, I think some of the things we were talking about bring me back to I have this. I posted some stuff on Substack and they subsequently disappeared, and I've tried to reach their customer service, and it seems they inhabit a prison in Kazakhstan or something because they are not able to
Well,
respond.
this is why Substack I feel kind of on, always on the fence about everything from my perspective.
Right.
But keep talking.
There's we talk about free will. Again, I was just listening to a podcast about free will in a deterministic universe. So if the Big Bang is the thing, then in kind of the same way that if you hit a bunch of balls on a pool table and they had continuous energy, there's ultimately one way in which they would continue to interact over time. So when it came into being, the universe was there was the this atom went this way and this one went this way and they crossed paths, so they intersected and all that stuff they say is prescriptive. It's just like it could only happen one way. But within that, that's at the microscopic, at the macroscopic level, we're people and we can make choices and we can do things and we don't have it doesn't have to be aligned that way. It's not, people think your life is just scripted and you just follow the path, but we do have free will at this level of um, existence. But I think that for all the good, I grew up in, as a male in the second half of the 20th century, white, and in um, basically a nice little suburb of Boston, and so I had so many advantages and so many things just given to me. But there's also a price for that, and that is things are decided for you. Your religion that you're gonna, or not religion that you're gonna be brought up in, the teachers that you're gonna have in school, the sort of expectations of what's a good thing to be spending your time doing and what's a useless thing to be spending your time. And a lot of it centered around, work ethic and all that stuff, which is not a bad thing. But I have this image of you start off as this little tiny particle and you can go in any direction that you want initially, but a lot of it is things going to move into place, all those things I talked about, and they're going to now narrow your options further and further and further as you get older. And it's more almost not impossible, but it's really, really hard to break this wall or that wall down and find a new path. And I think that part of it is that they said our education system is based on the German model from the 1800s, which was preparing people to work in factories.
Mhm.
And our whole system is designed to make you not only work, but to strive and to spend and to buy things you don't need in order to keep it's a Ponzi scheme and the money flows up and doesn't come back out.
Mhm.
More importantly, I think it takes away, as you talked about, some people who are just incredibly creative people just end up in mental hospitals because they can't be handled and they don't fit. They don't buy into the model that was set forward for them.
Mhm.
And I think you and I talked about this. My youngest she's adopted from China, and sometimes they have attachment issues. And so Leslie found this amazing guy to talk to. And in a moment we had to ourselves, he told us about a woman that was coming to see him, and she had 8 distinct personalities.
Mhm.
And I said, well, that must be difficult. I said, so who do you treat? And he says, whoever shows up, and it was like, it was brilliant. It was just brilliant. It was like, oh my God. And so in another world, another way could have happened, we could see that person as a prophet. I mean, as the future, we all who knows, what it is. But
Mhm.
in our society, it's just so restrictive and so designed to keep you
Mhm.
filling your role and feeding the monster. That's it. So
Filling your role and feeding the monster. I mean, yes, and what are you choosing for yourself at this time that is being experienced by most of the empaths as a fairly dark and stormy night of the collective consciousness? Like, how are you? I mean, you're in a sunnier, warmer place. Tell me what are the other aspects of your delight engine?
I just think the simplest things. There's a lot of trails around here that we can simply walk to from our home, and take the dogs up the hill. And all of them go up the hill, and then you can see the valley below, and you can see the mountains behind it. And um, I've been saying for a long time that I love New England, I love Boston, love all of that. But my last home, the house that we had was in Wenham, and it was on a circle, but it was in a valley because the street came downhill like this, and we were surrounded by massive trees. And it was pretty. It's
Mhm.
bucolic. It was a lovely piece of land. It was lovely and stuff like that. But I just wanted a vista, you know. I said I need an ocean, a desert, or mountains that I can look at every single day for inspiration, you know. And so in California, you have all those things. But so we're sort of in, our section of Southern California is really considered desert. And we have these incredible range of mountains that, we had some heavy rain a couple of months ago, and they all in the middle of, it was warm outside, but they were all snow capped, and it was just every time I get in my car, I drive, I look at those mountains, and they just, something about it just sort of fills you up, it makes this part of the world on the ground seem less important, and certainly the knowledge that it's not going to last, the way that it is, so.
Yeah. I mean, what you're speaking to now is the natural curative effects of being in nature
Right.
and the reality that having a change of climate is healthy for most folks in certain situations. And it was explained to me that like lithium was a natural occurring like elements, like that it exists in a lot of lakes and river spaces, and that's where they would send the crazies. That's where they would send the infirm to like rebuild their. I'm always like, I'm sorry, you're just talking about how artists and poets have always been sensitive and
Right,
needed
right.
more time outdoors. Thank you. I'm glad to know that. Good. Okay, I'll take lithium for a while. Also, lithium is taken by a lot of people at low doses in Europe because physios have known for a long time that it is preventative against dementia. But there are diminishing returns on the internal organs at a certain point. So, like,
Right.
I do a lot of research because of what I went through. When people hear me talk about preventative against dementia and elders being over medicated, doy, to use a term that was popular long ago, but still some people think is funny to say. Like, yeah. And I am grateful to be not so much in the medical system at this point, such that I can both speak to it and also say everybody's in a process of discerning what they need. You know what word I'm really excited about right now? The interstitium. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about the interstitium?
No, tell me.
I don't know anything about it yet. But one of my friends who also cares about soma and psyche said, look this up. There's articles. This is how we better understand the East meets West. This is the way Western medicine is starting to define what we've always known from an Eastern slash somatic perspective about intuition, body mind connection, the brain inside of our bellies. Like, it's old news to anyone who's ever gotten to an acupuncturist and or like gets that funny feeling in their stomach and responds and is later grateful because they're in tune with the signals of their body. But and interstitium. I'm like, I'm gonna have to read some of those articles so I can sound like I actually know what I'm talking about. But we're always rediscovering things that have been around for a long time. What is something that you are rediscovering or understanding for the first time?
As much as
Yeah.
Americans like to believe they're never going to die, and we try to hide from it and run from it as much as we can and look like we're not going to die.
Yeah.
We're going to die, and so much of around us is an illusion, and the way that we operate our lives is so
Yeah.
phony in so many ways, and that's a real thing, and that's a real event, a real set of feelings, and it's cuts across every race and color, and so
Yeah.
everybody has to feel
Yeah.
that, right? And so,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, that's what I got out of it. It was
Thank you for naming that something was real for you. I mean, also, fellow poet, musician, empath, like I've sung at a lot of funerals. I've gathered people together. I've been a chaplain in hospital. The number of times I've been adjacent to the most horrible aspects of what happens between humans or just happens kind of out of the blue. I've seen miracles. I've seen horrors. And I'm not done seeing those. I'm 45. I'm going to hopefully be here until I'm 101 or 111. That's the outside goal. But over the next year or so, it's my intention to make pilgrimage to other sites that are social justice oriented sites, like Tulsa, Oklahoma. My mother was born in Oklahoma 31 or so years after the massacre that wiped out a whole town of Black people. Um, she had nothing to do with those massacres, but people who looked like her did. Um, I'm somebody who, like, if I get stuck in traffic on like Yom Kippur or a religious holiday, holy day, like, if I am adjacent to a space that seems to be wanting respect and it makes sense to my heart space to show my respect in some way, I will pull over. I will like step out. I must always have some fake flower or real flower or just some gesture of respect. But you don't need an object. Often I'll just kneel on the ground for a moment to pay my respect. And that's because the most important voices of our past will never be heard. They are the Anna Allstrands. They are the Hannah Callowhills, first acting governor of a female governor of a colony, the second wife of William Penn. She don't get much respect, but I look forward to learning more about her eventually because I have a William Penn biography. I'll read every single part about her because I'm from Philly and I better. I better is how I feel. Like if I have the time and energy and I'm somebody who maybe like does something with that information and offers it to other people, I'm a teacher. I'm a human. I think the voices whose stories get subjugated to the margins and the index pages, but also much more so, the voices that were never given pen, all of the ghosts continue to haunt us. And those of us who have the wherewithal and heart space to say, bring back those ghosts, let them speak through me or to me. Let me listen deeply by putting my feet on the holy, blood-stained ground of my ancestors. Like, it is not just my privilege as a citizen of the United States, I feel bound and beholden by every spiritual forebear on the planet from every space to bear witness. And bearing witness certainly takes stamina and fortitude. And when the moments come when I don't have that kind of fortitude, it's the face of Anna that I'll need to have in my heart space, right? What is a face of somebody who is long gone that you remember that gives you fortitude? Oh, I see you reaching. This is exciting. Oh,
Yeah.
I can kind of see it. Tell me about her. Yeah. She
All
kind of
right. So
disappears into the ocean of your
yeah,
background, but that's
I don't know
okay.
how to make it any better. At any rate,
It's
that's my
okay. Then we saw her. She was like a ghost coming through. Thank you,
yeah,
Zoom. You gave us a good.
my maternal grandmother, and when they were, I was probably in my early teens. She and her two sisters moved into a place right next door to us, a building right next door to our home, and I used to go there all the time because she was uh, the most, she was the kindest, most like settled person I ever met, and it was like going there was just in the being a teenager and in the 60s and 70s and all the chaos that was happening and stuff like that. It was just the room, the lights were always off. It was daytime, and it was kind of a the setting was just really quiet and calm. And she used to give me cigarettes, so we'd sit there and talk about life and smoke cigarettes and stuff. And um, yeah, so that's the person. In terms of what I look back on and say, that's the essence that I draw from, at my best of times, is her spirit. So
Yeah. What is her name?
Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Well, blessings on Nancy. I'm grateful that she's still around for you to sit on the porch and not smoke with these days. But that
Right.
her energy is with you, right?
Yeah.
I showed you at the beginning of this call this card that I made that
Yeah.
has three women who are from pages of magazines. Um, in the center is a woman with darker skin than mine, who I think that was actually from like a fashion ad or something. But she was the character who caught my eye much more so than some person in some cool outfit behind her. Because as you and I both know, we grow in beauty as we get older if we're living our truest life. You and I both grieve those who step off the earth planet earlier than we would like to see them go. And I
Sorry.
I think you and I both hold no judgment of those who choose to step away because this is a sticky situation of a planet at times. And as someone who feels deeply, when I have encountered those who are genuinely suicidal, I feel nothing but compassion and curiosity to understand them better. Just part of the
Yeah.
reason I had to stop being a therapist because as a therapist, I was bound and beholden by certain oaths to take certain kinds of action. And in my experience, some of those actions lead to increased desire to be dead. So I'm against incarceration of beings that wish to be free, but I also recognize how complex that is. And I am excited to do joyful things while also bearing witness, to find some balance of those things in the next seasons of my life. That's part of the reason I say, I'll come visit you, Bob, because I still have family and other friends in California and you. I just signed up for one of the many sites. I won't mention which one for the sake of this conversation, partly because I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like a work site where you can go and stay and like bring your trade or skill with you and like travel anywhere in the world for a low cost, right? But you have to like contact the host and it has some upkeep to it, but I'm ready for a little slow adventure that allows my body to heal, but a lot also brings me back to a kid I used to be. Like, this is the other thing I have that I'm looking at all the time. Little Walkman. It was an off-brand. At one thought I point I thought maybe I'll get this like remade, but no, I can find a better better tape player. But I wrote on it zany, and I had a the Magic School Bus sticker. I covered this Walkman with stickers in middle school, I believe, and I bought it myself with my babysitting money. And I chose the word zany to describe the way I wanted to perceive myself because I knew I was a weirdo nerd who got teased a lot in middle school, but also maybe not as much as I thought, just enough in sixth grade to start like not being honest about everything and just like hanging out with the other uncool kids. I'm so grateful to remember that kid because that's what made me actually masterful at working with adolescents when I started teaching in middle school. And I'm still masterful at working with what is, I believe, the energy of grief, which is in its own way an adolescence. When we are working in the space of life transition, like a young 20 something whose prefrontal cortex is like still in the process of fully forming. Like, but also when I look at men who die by suicide as they get to retirement age and don't see themselves as useful anymore, women who do something different or the same, what you and I both know is that sometimes it's substance use that leads toward suicidality or that is to blame. Fentanyl, anyone? Like,
Right.
we have so many ways people can go on purpose or by accident now. And while it is both a huge mess and a sorrow, I have to look at the unfolding life around me. Lilac season in Boston. Pop.
Mm.
You don't get as many lilacs out there, but you get lots of good smelling things. What is an aroma that you love in California?
Yeah, we had an entire in my growing up backyard. There's like 30 feet of lilac bushes, and that was my favorite. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of friends born in May, and I started to write a song about what that means. And I haven't figured out the rest of the song yet, but I'm going to write it. It'll be part of the show, I think. Like to be born
Well,
in the season of the
I have
lilac.
about five minutes left.
This is
So
good. This is good. Okay. So we've talked about Memorial Day a little bit. We've talked about some of our ancestors. We've talked about hope in a way. And we've talked about stories that are both sorrowful and real. We're going to start to move into the end of this conversation, the
mm,
lightning round or the rapid fire. And I'm going to grab my laptop from behind me. But before I do that, I'm going to torture you with an assignment
okay.
as your former voice teacher. I'd like you to look up some music from Eritrea. Um,
Eritrea.
because Sunday is their Freedom Day. And I don't know if I'm saying the name of their country in Africa quite perfectly, but it's also Ascension Sunday and it's also the Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people don't know that much about this part of Africa. So if you would please look up some of their music, as I have been doing over the past week, just listen to a little and see what catches your attention.
Yep.
That is a great way to talk about others. We have a lot of people working in healthcare and driving us in Lyft and Uber from Eritrea here in Boston. So, worth noting their Freedom Day. Okay, thank you for listening to me talk about that. What is one thing you wish people would stop saying?
Mm. That um, both parties are equal. Both political parties are equal. Yeah.
Okay. What is one thing you wish more people would automate?
Automate.
I mean, you're a consultant yourself here, Bob, and you are a brilliant mind. Six Sigma, I'll never understand what it means, but you sold to the restaurant industry. We don't have to get into how techy and brilliant you are. We're talking poetry today. But
I,
what's
I've
your
always thought that the system for loading and unloading passengers onto airplanes is still, has never changed. And my fantasy is that will some we get to either uh, electric power or something like that that powers the planes, and the plane will come in. It'll actually come into the terminal, and the sides will open up like this and become flat, and you'll walk off into the terminal. So everybody gets off at the same time. So it's
okay?
yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. That's right, as someone who's been traveling recently. What is one thing that, what is an experience or who is a person that surprises you with delight regularly?
Hmm.
It can be a first thought, best thought.
No, it's John Oliver.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Yes. Um, if you were a song, what song would you be?
Steel, okay. Deacon Blues.
Say it again.
Deacon Blues by Steely Dan.
I don't even know that song. I'm gonna have to look it up. I know Steely
Yeah.
Dan, but I don't know
The
Deacon Blue.
lyrics are just perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. You've given me an assignment now. What is your favorite poem
Hmm.
or a favorite poem? Because you are a poet yourself. It can be one of your own if you want.
I have somebody was just reading it the other night. And actually posted it is I forget the title of it. It's by Yeats. And it has the line, the middle of the center will not hold. Do you know
Okay.
that?
Mhm.
That's
Yes.
the poem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Well,
speaks to our time absolutely perfectly,
it
so
does. It does. And we'll put that in into the notes as well.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Who is one of your most important teachers?
You are.
Thanks. And you've been one of mine as well. I think you know that.
Um, yeah, I think it goes back to my maternal grandmother. She was probably uh, creating space for people to just be safe and be calm and be themselves. So she was great at that.
My glass of water is empty, but I'm gonna raise a jar of push pins to Because creating space for people to be who they are,
Yeah.
nothing more beautiful than that. Yeah. And in the name of all the aunties, teachers, poets, friends, and those who feel deeply, I want you to know that I have an avocado sticker on a hotel card, key card, that I may have to send you to make some soul collage cards. Do you want to make any soul collage cards or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to send you a few and I'll pay for extra postage costs if I need to,
Okay.
because I'm going to be offering that as a regular thing. I think on Sundays, um, in I think it's going to probably be the second Sunday of the month, starting in June. I've been thinking about this because you and I talked about this a while ago, to do something that is like
Yeah.
a creative time, and I'll offer Soul Collage paid on my Substack channel, but I'll also invite people to come and bring whatever they want to work on
Yeah.
if that's not their thing. So I'm really grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you as well.
And thank you for holding the light of truth out from your coast. And I'll be there at some point. We'll
Oh,
stay in touch.
so good
All
to
right.
see you.
So good to see you too.
Take care. Bye bye.